The last bit that David read, for me, is like an analogy that sums up what we're doing here. It's like we're coming together like the river, the streams in the river. And hopefully when you go back to London, Birmingham, Linkfield or wherever, we'll be flowing together and we'll feel a connectedness to one another, and that will empower us, because this kind of work is not easy. It's not easy in today's society. So we need to feel connected to each other, even though we might be back home or wherever, and then we can be multiply what we've experienced. So the first, I'm just going to talk a little bit about blessing and interfaith, both in terms of Reverend Mrs. Moon's life work, and then also bring it down to the local level in terms of what myself and Patricia, Margaret and Robin have been trying to do more locally, street level. And I was saying to Peter earlier that I like that aspect of our movement where we can connect top and bottom. We can connect what's going on at street level, even into the British government through Robin and Margaret's work, into the UN because we have consultative status and so on. That really empowers me, that connectedness. So just a few slides about the blessing. Then I think this first slide was probably taken when this little book was launched. Not sure exactly, but when Father Moon's autobiography was launched in Korea, that was the occasion. Not sure which year that was exactly. This is the launch of UPF in 2005 in New York. Oops. Does this go automatically?
Who loves that? You.
We should see. UPF is the result of several previous incarnations. So this work has been going on for many years. It didn't just begin in 2005. There's a lot of history behind that. The previous incarnation was a huge mouthful, the Interreligious International Federation for World Peace. Even I can't say it properly. So we changed it to UPF, Universal Peace Federation. This was launched in 2005. So the film that we saw this morning actually is very helpful, because this will sort of enhance that. There's just a couple of slides from Father Moon's life, as was mentioned earlier. When he began becoming more public, then he encountered a lot of opposition. So often something that's perceived as new comes into conflict with the old, more traditional, and ideally there's dialogue. But in this case there was a lot of persecution in Korea, and Father Moon was imprisoned a number of times. He was tortured to the point of death. I don't know if you remember on the previous film, he was called the dancing crane torture, where you're strung up and beaten. And he lost so much blood, his body was thrown out, his followers found him, and he somehow managed to recover and continued to the point where then he was committed to a death camp, where you were basically worked to death. This was in 1948 to 1950, in a very hostile environment where basically you were underfed, overworked, and you went out of the prison in a body bag. But he managed to survive 2.5, almost 3 years of that, through spiritual practice and God's grace, and came to the south, the Korean War. There's a lot of history, but in 1960, and 10 years later then, he was blessed in marriage with, in Korea we would say Han Hakja, I think, but Hakja Han Moon, who is currently spearheading our movement still, at the age of 76.
Yeah.
77, I think, by Korean counting. And they have been on an incredible journey together, exemplifying the ideals that we espouse, and particularly the marriage blessing, which teaches that God's ideal is realized through the family. So then Father Moon and his wife, when they began to bless their followers in marriage, with this central idea that we should reach a certain level of spiritual maturity, whereby then God can bless our marriages, and through inheriting God's blessing, we can then be not just blessed ourselves, but we can be a conduit a vehicle whereby God's blessing can flow into not just our extended family, but into society, into the workplace, into all aspects and spheres of human endeavour. The numbers grew over the years. 36 couples, 120 couples, 430 couples. I think the blessing went on to the national level in Korea. And then subsequently, Father Moon started to bless Korean and Japanese couples, which was extremely challenging and problematic because Korea had been occupied from 1905 to 1945 by the Japanese. And incredibly terrible things had happened, such that there was enmity between these two nations. So to bless and couples to come together in marriage was not a simple matter. But that's a central part of Father Moon's philosophy, is that if we feel called to marry somebody from a different faith or a different culture or a different ethnic background or a different race, then our children, if we can manage that, our children can grow up free from the historical prejudices that have constrained us. So we have examples like David and Kimja, Oriental and Western, myself and my wife, Catholic Protestant. You might think that's relatively easy, but the first time I went to Belgium to visit my wife's family, coming from a Protestant Methodist background, it was a little, also culturally, I'm come from a relatively conservative English family, diplomatic, and you go to Belgium and you have lunch around the table and you think there's World War III going on. People just hurling words and so on at each other, and then everything's fine. So my wife, I sometimes say, is mixed race. If you know anything about Belgium, Belgium is basically two peoples forged into one, historically. You have the Walloon, more French-speaking, and you have the Flemish, more Germanic, Dutch, and very different, and now they're splitting into two. I think this was probably around 2010-11 in our Peace Center in Korea, Peace World Center. We used to hold the blessing in Olympic stadiums or other venues. Now we have our own venue in a place called Chongpyeong, which I hope you haven't visited, you can visit at some point. Ideally next February, when we have this huge summit to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Father Moon's birthday, his birth. So, significance of the blessing then, it's for everybody. Largely it's to rededicate our marriage for couples who are already married. For engaged couples, it's a commitment to try to keep their purity until they officially marry. As I mentioned, to transcend boundaries of race and religion, to bring us more close to this ideal of one family under God, and it takes place all over the world. It's very personal when you participate, but it's also incredibly empowering. You feel a sense of solidarity with brothers and sisters all over the world. So this is just one example where in Mindanao, in the Philippines, it's actually helped to bring two conflicted communities together, largely Christian Muslim, and there's a lot of tension, and we held a blessing there. It was attended by religious leaders and various people. So the last couple of sentences here: instead of communal fighting based largely along religious lines, Mindanaoans came together, transcending and maintaining their religious identity in celebration of marriage and family as one family under God. So we keep our identity, but in a sense we go forward to a higher level together. The streams flowing into the river, climbing the same mountain and finding out, oh, you're here as well, going in the same direction together on the foundation, not negating the foundation that we come from, but helping people to go forward and build on that towards the idea of one family under God. Very joyful occasion in Mindanao. It was in 2012. More locally then, we've tried to mirror that in the UK, here in Birmingham, by bringing people of all faiths together. In this case, it was a Christian conference centre. Here you've got representatives of Her Majesty the Queen, Deputy Lord Lieutenant, if you know that term. Devinda knows that very well. former Lord Mayor, city councillors, but here you've got two people who are just clinging on to their status as refugees and asylum seekers. So again, you've got top and bottom, everybody's there for the same purpose. February 2014, same place. I don't know if you can recognise this young man here, sitting in the front row. Linda. But we've also held it in, that's a Unitarian church, in a Hindu temple here, the Earle Samaj. There's a funny story here. My wife, it was a big venue, 300-400 people. My wife was afraid that we wouldn't fill the venue, so she asked me to order some panels, you know, that you could stick down the middle of the room to make it look full. And then we'd anticipated about 150 people coming. People just kept coming and coming and coming, and we had to move the panels back and back. Eventually we had to get rid of the panels. It was a total waste of time. We had over 300 people. Again, reflecting the diversity of London, Birmingham, our present Western multicultural society. It's amazing.
This is in London?
That was in Birmingham,
Oh.
in Nichols, Arya Samaj in Nichols. But as I mentioned earlier, when you bring people together from different backgrounds, there can be, naturally, there can be tension. So my wife and I, we've been invited twice in Birmingham to get involved where a Sikh young person has fallen in love with somebody from another faith, Christian background, which to more conservative members of the Sikh community is a no-no. You just can't do that, whether racially or even in terms of caste sometimes, as you may know from an Asian background. So in the first case it was a young Sikh lady, and she'd fallen in love with a young man from an Anglican Church of England background. And the parents, who knew us very well over many years and had some kind of trust there, they invited myself to come to the wedding and speak to the two communities to try to help the. And there was, I didn't know it at the time, but there was police protection. There had been death threats. So there was police protection on the day, unbeknown to me. And so I had to try to placate the Sikh extremists to explain about something about Christianity and help the Christian family to understand something about Sikhism. Then it happened again 3 years later, same thing. A young man was Sikh background, was studying in Prague, fell in love with a young Irish colleague, young Irish lady, wanted to marry, and they couldn't do it in the main Gurdwara, so they did it in Dublin, where the young Irish lady came from. So I was flown to Dublin, Ryanair, and there at 36,000 feet, thinking, what can I say to help the Sikh and the Catholic communities understand each other? And I guess because I was a little bit closer to God, I got the inspiration to speak about hospitality. Because I'd experienced Irish hospitality when I was a backpacker student. I travelled all around the Ring of Kerry, as they call it, Killarney. Experienced so much hospitality in Ireland, even at that time during the Troubles. But I'd also experienced incredible hospitality in the Gurdwara, the Langar, in Sikh family homes. So much hospitality. So I spoke about hospitality, and it worked. It helped to bring the communities together. You know, meeting in the car park for a nation wedding, and then everybody meeting each other inside. So, anyway, having these experiences helps us to play a role in reconciliation and healing and bringing people together in a very practical, human situation, but challenging. Just to turn to Interfaith, then Reverend Moon founded a theological seminary where a Jewish rabbi would teach Old Testament, from the Torah, Buddhist, and so on, would teach their own theological faith traditions. When was it founded, David? Was it 75? David? Was it founded in 75?
About 78 was the first year.
Okay. So all of this work goes back, a long way, more than 40 years. I think we may have quoted these already. As far as I know, God is not sectarian, not obsessed with minor details of doctrine. In God's heart, in His great love, there's no discrimination based on colour or nationality. There are no barriers between countries or cultural traditions. Through interreligious dialogue and harmony, we should realise one ideal world of peace. So ideally then, through the blessing and this understanding, our first impulse towards the other, ideally should be a familial feeling. This could be my brother, this could be my sister, this could be my child, this could be my grandma, my granddad. That should be the first impulse. And then everything else is important, but secondary. We feel and we treat each other as one family. But often those things get in the way, and we see the more external, the terminal, here the accent and so on. Assembly of World Religions, 1985 was the first in New Jersey. 1990, then between 85 and 90, don't know if we've got a copy here, but if you haven't seen the book World Scripture, it's an anthology of sacred texts that compares what each particular faith tradition says about family, about faith, about love. It's an amazing resource, and it was compiled between these two assemblies and introduced in 1990. You have the Grand Mufti of Syria, Grand Mufti of Yemen. There's a wonderful video from that particular assembly. In 1985, an initiative was created called the Youth Pilgrimage for World Peace. So young people would go from different places like Rome, Istanbul, Jerusalem, Delhi. They would go on a pilgrimage together. And out of that came an actual project called the Religious Youth Service Project, where young people come together and serve a community for a weekend, a week, a month, or whatever. And that project is something that we took on board in Birmingham. And I don't know if you can see, again, this young lady here. You might recognise her. Not quite sure how young she was then. Anyway. So that's young people from all over the world, plus all over the West Midlands, coming together to serve in the inner city of Birmingham. We were there for about a week or 10 days. And through service, well, there's two kind of objects. One is to serve the local community, but in doing that, the young people become like brothers and sisters. So when they leave, they might be encountering a young Muslim for the first time. But when they leave like brothers and sisters in tears. And they go back, and they feel empowered to do this then in their country or their community. Just one little story. I was raising the money for this project in Birmingham. I needed about £3,000 or £4,000. So I went to the city council because we were taking a piece of derelict land, making it into a nature trail in this case, making a recycling centre. I thought we were doing something of public value and virtue. So I went to the city council and I said, could you help us with a little bit of money? But they asked me for money. They said, at that time Birmingham was very rich. Now they're impoverished, but at that time they had loads of money. So they asked me, can you give us some money for work clothes and tools? And so I thought, this is upside down. But anyway, I thought, I'll put my money where my mouth is, and I gave them £300.
Oh dear.
Because I just got some money from a company. I gave them £300. The following year, they gave me £3,000 because they could see what it was. So there's a certain principle there. We did another wonderful project in the east heartland of Birmingham, building a park for mothers and children, from a piece of derelict land. And then that project also, won't go into the story, but it de-radicalized a young guy, Arjun Parekh, who was a member of the RSS, if any of you know about the RSS in India. And after this project, he came to me about a month later and said, David, I can't belong to that organization anymore. Through encountering young people from other faiths and doing this kind of work, but he didn't know where he was. He couldn't go back to the RSS, but he didn't quite know. So he went the following year with these three young ladies and helped to do a project in Slovenia. And he completely changed through that experience. We didn't expect that. We had no idea that was going to happen. But it shows the power of interfaith, and you never quite know. I like that aspect of interfaith, even being with Father Moon, you never quite know what's coming, because the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. there's a kind of anointing. When we come together like this, we get ideas and inspirations from above, but you never quite know what's going to happen. So we didn't realize then the following year we were invited to India, Patricia and myself, and we ended up in South India in Andhra Pradesh. Margaret keeps popping up here, look, she's there again. And we had 45 young people from around the world and from the local, from Hyderabad, working together, and we built a children's home that could provide a little bit of education, a little bit of care, not the education, they went to a local school. We provided the care for 40 or 50, don't like to use the word Dalit, even less the word untouchable. Anyway, children from that background who were orphans, who were absolutely zero. They were either beggars or going into prostitution or rag pickers, as they call it. And we provided the care. And most of these kids managed to get through school and go to either college or into vocational education. But this building was built by money from Birmingham's temples, mosques, churches, gurdwaras, synagogues. All the people of the West Midlands built this, so it was holy money. To the point where when I had to introduce a government official, Vijay Rama Rao, he was what they call the Minister for Roads, Buildings and Ports from the government of Andhra Pradesh. He was previously in the national government, the head of the CBI. I couldn't speak. I was crying. I couldn't speak because I felt the collective goodness of so many people that had gone into this concrete and these bricks of mortar. I couldn't speak. I was just choked with emotion. And I like that as well. I like it when we have this collective goodness, and you never know what's going to come out of that.
Which year was that?
In 1998, we started building in 1998, and the home was opened in early 2000, so it took about a year and a half to build. There were 2 Buddhist monks on this project from Sri Lanka, and not this one, but the other one. At that time, he had a CD player inside his robes. The CD players were just coming into existence at that time. So we called him high-tech and this one low-tech. Buddhist monks. But it's a very empowering project, both for the young people who take part and the local community. It empowers the local community. So it's been going for almost 20 years. Amazing. And another thing that happened that we never expected was just about 2 or 3 years later, 2003, somehow this project was recommended for what they call the Hindratana Award, Jewel of India Award. We never found out who recommended it. We don't know why this happened. The project was not even a drop in the ocean, but somehow it came to national recognition, and we decided to take this award because it gave us credibility and brought more funding, and somehow was a really amazing thing. But we never expected that. That if you know I.K. Gujral, former Prime Minister, and this former President, who himself comes from a Dalit background, very interesting, Mr. Narayana. So you never know what's around the corner. I didn't take that picture. It's from Yellowstone. So just to go back to the bigger picture then, you'll have seen on the film a picture of Reverend Moon speaking at the UN, calling for this upper house, which David mentioned yesterday. So to combine the internal and external, the religion and politics, to complement and support each other, not for religion to take over, but to complement the work of the socio-political work of the UN, ideally. Supported by former President of Indonesia, Abdurrahman Wahid, people like Kenneth Gonda, you would have seen him on the video. That's speaking at the UN. It's been very slow progress. We have managed to arrive at World Interfaith Harmony Week, and there's a World Interfaith Day, I believe. But the UN still has a long way to go because of various constraints, restrictions in the Constitution and so on. But at least it's moving. So then we've tried to take all of that kind of work again back to the local level. Some of the ladies here will have attended the peace meeting. Again, people coming together for a good purpose, discussing common issues, whether it's domestic violence, trafficking and so on, and then trying to do something practical. And again, you never know quite what's going to emerge from these meetings in our home. You never even know who's going to come. So a week ago, we had a film about honour crime and honour killing, and we had 140 ladies in our house. That's the world record for us. They were in the meeting room, the extension room, the TV room, the dining room, the kitchen, everywhere. I always half joke that I'm not allowed into the meeting myself, but I do the parking outside. I park the ladies as they arrive. And parking is very difficult on our road and in our area because of tens of thousands of SP students. And in 25 years, we've only ever had one complaint. Can you imagine 140 ladies arriving to park their cars, and there's me in my yellow jacket, trying not to upset the neighbours. We've only ever had one complaint in 25 years. That's testimony to the wonderful driving skills of women, and it's proof of the existence of God. So some ladies came and spoke about chaplaincy, and out of that, unexpectedly, 3 ladies decided to become hospital chaplains to represent the Sikh and Buddhist and different communities. Patricia mentioned, I think, when she was commenting during the question time yesterday, towards the end of the meeting there's a time of really quiet reflection when people can pray or offer something, and there's some kind of presence comes into the room, and people want to come back for more. Can't exactly give that a name, but there's some experience there, which is quite amazing. So combining the spiritual and the practical. And just briefly, we took many groups of people to the Holy Land. You saw a little clip of that on the video again. Robin has done amazing work helping to organise these events. People of all faiths, all walks of life. I could tell you so many stories about that. Margaret again. This was one of the most electrifying moments in my life, when at the end of a peace walk through the old city of Jerusalem, we arrived in Al-Aqsa, the third most holy site of Islam, where Prophet Muhammad reputedly ascended to heaven. And often you cannot go into this place if you're from another faith, or even women sometimes. So we were able to go in, men, women, Muslim, Christian, Jew, everybody, we could go in. And Imam Bundakji, who you saw speaking on the video, he was weeping when he spoke to us. It was such an amazing, incredible moment.
Sorry, why are they not allowed to go? Like it's controlled by Israeli, obviously. Israel doesn't allow.
Because of the tensions that arise, and the Israeli security won't allow certain people up onto Temple Mount. Not so much into the mosque, but onto Temple Mount itself, because of the political, tension. And then you saw people laying flowers. Margaret was laying a flower at the Holocaust Memorial, Yad Vashem. Another little story then, one group, we were attending morning worship with Bishop Rhea at his cathedral, and this gentleman from Birmingham, he's from Sudan, a very close friend of ours and his wife, and he was very moved by this whole experience in the Holy Land. It touched his heart and gave him so much power. He's mainly in Sudan, but he comes back to Birmingham, and then several years later there was a point where 2 Christian pastors were imprisoned in Sudan about 3 years ago and facing execution. So I contacted him and said, is there anything you can do to help us? And he remembered, his experiences with us and so on, and he managed to speak to the vice president of the country, and somehow that whole thing was resolved peacefully. That wasn't the only thing that happened. There were online petitions and other things happening, but somehow those 2 Christian pastors were released. And I tried to have him convey to the government, it's in everybody's best interest that they be released. For them, for you. And so we asked him, please convey a lot of gratitude to the government, to the Vice President. The outcome reflects well on all concerned. There are ways to resolve things. If we come together, put our heads together and seek the help of the divine. There are ways to resolve all issues. eventually, I feel. And then all of these things finally have had an impact on our family. So many of us who joined this movement, ourselves 40, 45 years ago, we also experienced a lot of tension even from our own families, speaking personally, because it was something very new. Our families came from a very traditional Catholic or Protestant background, and naturally our parents were concerned. You know, what is this? My wife was even kidnapped by her own family in the Catholic Church. She was kidnapped and held against her will in her own home. And so that created tension with our family, which had to be resolved somehow. But eventually, with time, we could resolve those things as our family saw that we're happy doing good things. They saw the activities of our movement. So the ripple effect and all of those things. This is actually our daughter and son-in-law next door, in the room next door. They had their wedding celebration here. And even it brought Patricia's family together. Her family had been at loggerheads with each other, and they came together for this event and managed to reconcile with each other. We never quite expected that would happen, especially because her elder brother was he was dying from cancer at that time. But before he died, he was able to reconcile with them.
You don't have a picture of the dance?
No, sorry.
Patricia and the brother.
And then back in Birmingham, we had another celebration. I don't know if any of you were there. Shaheen, were you there for that? And again, we could bring all our friends together. And our children got every kind of blessing on them. They got a Muslim blessing, they got a Sikh blessing, they got a Jewish blessing, they got a Christian blessing, they got a Hindu blessing.
Why they do it so well?
So that just gives you a little flavour of the bigger picture, but also how it reflects down into the street level, to the work that we're doing. And it's very challenging, as I said, but it's very interesting, fascinating. You never quite know what's going to happen. And so I hope that will be the same from our meeting here. That, you'll go away and we will surprise, God will surprise each other, and but we have to stick together, keep in touch, and let that river flow out into our families, into our communities when we go back, and trust that God will guide us on our way. Thank you very much.